Hello and welcome to another episode of Builders, the podcast where we explore the minds of industry leaders shaping the future of technology and innovation. I'm Lee Haynes, and today I'm joined by Anastasia Varava, Head of Research at SEBx, the innovation studio within SEB, one of the Nordic region's largest and most established banks. Anastasia brings a strong background in applied research, and she leads efforts to bridge the gap between cutting-edge technology and real-world banking. From AI and data science to digital experimentation and cross-functional collaboration, she's working at the forefront of innovation within a space not always known for being agile, finance. Today we'll talk about what it takes to lead research in a corporate setting, how to recruit and build high-performing research teams, and how SEBx is reshaping the role of technology in financial services. So let's get to it. Anastasia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Let us begin at the beginning, shall we? Can you walk us through your career journey? What drew you to research and innovation in the financial space?
Yes, absolutely. I actually have an academic background. Some years back, I did my PhD in robotics, computer science in general, and machine learning at the time. I did it at KTH, so also here in Stockholm in Sweden. And I was in purely academic research for a while. And then I wanted to do something more applied. And that's how I ended up at the bank. And my first job was I was working with data science until we decided to create what we call now SEBx, so SEB's Innovation Studio. And my job there was to essentially take care of connections with research world, academia, both in Sweden and abroad. And we grew the team a little bit from that point, and now we have a dedicated applied research team.
Fantastic. And how many are in that team? How many strong is it?
Yeah, so SEBx is a little bit bigger. My team that I'm responsible for right now is 5 people, and we will have the 6th person joining in June.
Cool. Really nice. And so you're leading research at SEBx,
Yeah, exactly.
as I mentioned, kind of SEB's innovation studio. What does your role entail day to day? What does a day look like for you?
It really depends on the day. So in general, I work a lot both with business representatives, helping them to formulate their use cases. Primarily, it's, of course, in AI, although the kind of scope of SEBx is not limited to that. I work quite a bit with my team, with data science teams across the bank, because it's very important that we don't only do applied research, but we also make sure that we have someone to hand over prototypes to. I spend 1 day a week at KTH. I'm actually a faculty in machine learning still, so I do some academic research there as well. And then we have a pretty big external network, which means that I also interact quite a bit with researchers, both in Sweden and abroad.
Fantastic. And how does SEBx differ from like the traditional parts of the bank?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. So by design, we're placed a little bit outside of the organization. So we're not a part of neither technology organization nor any business unit. Right. And that's done on purpose because we have more freedom to explore new technology, work on things that will not necessarily work out. But at the same time, we work, like I said, quite a lot with the business, so essentially with all business divisions. And of course, the production data science teams who are responsible for the bank's AI strategy, maintaining models, taking care of governance, things like that.
And so maybe a more kind of a bigger question for the company as a whole, including SEBx. But how do you guys kind of balance exploration and experimentation, which is what you
that's a very good question. So we established a model that kind of works for us so far. So we have a pretty broad scope that, of course, is not limited to AI. It's in general new technology, so that can also mean quantum computing, that can mean blockchain, that can mean new trends in cybersecurity, for example. And we first start with what we call monitoring stage, which means that we're following the trends, we're seeing what's new in the academic world, what's coming out from big tech, what we believe is going to make a difference in a few years. Mm-hmm. And then if we have a case where we actually would like to build something, so build some kind of prototype of a solution, then we move to the next stage where we put more resources and we actually try to build a prototype that would serve a specific case. And in general, when we work with the bank, we primarily hand this over to kind of the main organization then for people to maintain and develop and use the systems. But we also have the mandate to, at some point, maybe start something new, like a new company or a new part of the bank, if we would like to basically develop something as a product. This is not something we have done so far, but that's also kind of a possibility in this model.
And yeah, you say so far. How old is SEBx as a group, as a team?
So as a team, we're a little bit more than 2 years old. But I need to mention here that we're actually the second iteration of SEBx. So we had a completely different team before, which I was not a part of. That kind of became that transformed over the years because they actually developed their own product, and that kind of became another part of the bank. And then we started from scratch and we built the team from scratch.
Nice. And you've been talking about kind of how you guys hand over to the production data science teams and whatnot. And before we talk about the future of AI in banking, I'd like to get a little bit of info on how you go from research to kind of real world impact, if you can talk a little bit about that, because I can imagine. I only assume that innovation in banking is not easy at all, right? Requiring kind of translating this creativity ideas into systems which, let's face it, work within very strict frameworks, right? So can you share any example of projects or initiatives that started in like exploration but evolved into real business ready application? You mentioned that you haven't had any so far, but some that even failed in the past. What have you been working on? What have you been trying to kind of push into?
Yeah, exactly. No, we have. We have solutions that we developed as prototypes that ended up in production. It's just that they did not become maybe products because we built them for the bank, so for people working at the bank to kind of support them.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So, the start of our iteration, the current iteration of SEBx, kind of coincided with the whole excitement around generative AI. So it was very natural that that was one of the first themes that we kind of worked a lot on. And at the time, it was primarily working with retrieval augmented generation before products in this area kind of started popping up. So we built first prototypes essentially by ourselves. We used, of course, pre-trained models, but everything that has to do with search and kind of putting things together, exploring the first cases, we built it ourselves. We work quite a lot now, both with agentic. Again, I'm talking about AI now specifically, and I want to emphasize that that's not the only area that we're active in, but it's a big part. So we work quite a lot now with agentic platforms, kind of trying to understand, how can we actually build complex systems, for example, for financial analysts that need something more than just using copilots. So which means that they will need their own terminology, their own computations that they need to perform in the process of their work, potentially even their own predictive models that kind of need to be incorporated there. So that's kind of one of the directions so far.
Fantastic. And when you say something more than like co-pilots, right?
Yes,
you're talking about these agents that can take care of processes start to finish, right? Or different parts of a process, right?
Yeah, so we're not talking about automation and replacing people. We kind of like all of the AI applications we really see as support for our employees. And then if you think about the support, it can really mean different things, right? So it can be essentially off-the-shelf systems that basically are useful for everyone. And that's, for example, Copilot type of applications that are not really catered for experts, for example, in credit analysis or in trading. They're kind of like generic general purpose tools. Then at the next level, if you think about even agentic platforms or virtual augmented generation or kind of systems built around that, if you want to cater it specifically to, for example, client executives, you might want to do some customization there. And then kind of at the top, I would say, of this mental pyramid, you really want to work closely with experts and kind of incorporate their domain knowledge of complex, like rather complex analysis, for example, that they perform, and train models specifically for them. And that doesn't necessarily mean Gen AI. That can be, for example, time series type of analysis and things like that. And of course, that in its turn can also be incorporated into agentic platforms. So yeah, that's kind of the range.
Yeah. And what would you say are the biggest challenges, or some of the biggest challenges, in turning research into kind of practical impact, especially in like a regulated industry like banking?
It's very important to. So when we build prototypes, in principle, we're not restricted by anything. But if we actually doing it for the bank, from day one, we need to think about the tools and platforms that are going to be possible to use. Which means that we need to choose the cloud provider that the bank works with. We need to kind of take into account the security, sensitivity of data, so make sure that it's actually productionalizable. And if you do it right, if you kind of have that from the beginning, that's doable, but that's something you always need to be aware of. And you kind of, in this process, you need to actually interact with the recipients. So, for example, data scientists in the main organization, or people working with the cloud and, different types of experts, to make sure that there is a path to production. And then, of course, you need to go through the approval process, because you will end up using new tools, and that's also kind of a part of the mission to actually do that. So you need to be prepared for that and kind of take those requirements into account beforehand.
Yeah. And I mean, let's face it, I mean, banks, generally speaking, haven't traditionally been seen as like these fast-moving kind of tech companies, right? I mean, this is all changing now with what we're talking about, this group that you're a part of, SEBx. But what are some of the biggest kind of cultural and organizational hurdles to introducing these advanced technologies into legacy financial environments?
Yeah, it depends a little bit on the case that you work with. And of course, I mean, we're a small team, so we don't work with all possible cases at the same time. So we kind of can prioritize and choose. But in principle, it very much depends on, for example, where the data is, right? Because we have the cloud strategy, but not all data is available in the cloud now. Potentially, some data will not be moved into the cloud at all because of data sensitivity. So you kind of need to choose. You need to choose cases where it's easier to innovate, but at the same time that bring value. And yes, I mean, of course, there is a rather complicated process for actually approving your technology after you build a successful prototype. But that's something where we get a lot of support from the main organization. So it's not just kind of us taking care of that.
Yeah. And you've spoken a little bit about kind of handing over prototypes and whatnot to other areas of the company as a whole. How do you ensure potentially non-technical domain experts in those other areas, say I don't know, from compliance or risk, or even within kind of product, can collaborate meaningfully with researchers and engineers like yourself?
Yeah. So first of all, when we actually build prototypes for cases, we do it very closely with business end users and kind of representatives from the business to make sure that what we build is what they need. And especially when it comes to Gen AI applications, we like to do it iteratively. So we build like a small first iteration that is usable. We expose it to the users. We have them try it and leave feedback, and then we collect the feedback through feedback forms, and then we had kind of have the continuous dialogue of how the system can be improved to build to meet their needs, what kind of functionality they would like us to add, and things like that. It's also extremely important when it comes to domain knowledge, because I think it's really a good combination when you have AI experts working closely with the business, because they get to learn a little bit from each other, and I think that's really what you kind of need to secure in terms of talent.
Yeah. No, so it's a super kind of iterative process by the sounds of it. Nice. And obviously this research kind of group obviously kind of means that SEB as a bank at least is kind of really heavily investing in research technology and the future. But have you witnessed at all, like in your career so far, that it's been very hard, or have you had any strategies that have helped you convince like leadership or those kind of higher up in companies to invest in emerging tech and experimentation, generally speaking?
I wouldn't say I had to convince anyone, to be honest. So we have quite forward-looking leadership, which really helps. I
Nice.
think we're a little bit special in that sense. That's probably not true for any arbitrary bank.
No, exactly. I think it's, we've spoken about it. It's, you're within an industry that's not really well known for this kind of
Yeah. I think it
agility, right?
depends. No, exactly. I think it depends a lot on leadership and kind of the strategy and how forward-leaning they are.
Yeah. And to talk a little bit about building and but also kind of leading these research driven teams. What when it comes to hiring, um, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in your experience when you're hiring researchers for an applied research team, when you're hiring developers as well? What are some of the biggest challenges?
Challenges. We actually hired a few brilliant people recently. So in general, I would describe the process as being not hard. So I'm very happy about that. Some things that we need to be careful with is, so when you recruit people that, for example, come from academia, it's kind of our job to explain that what you're going to do here is not going to be academic research. So it's going to be very applied. You will interact a lot with people without technical background. It's not really about necessarily advancing the state of the art for the sake of kind of publishing scientific papers, but it's really about building systems that work. So it can be that what you will end up using is not, the latest method that you're really excited about, but maybe you need something simpler that would actually do the job. And another thing is that it's kind of a mix of engineering. I would say it's quite engineering heavy, and it's also a little bit maybe different from what someone may expect coming out from academia. So you need to work in the team, first of all. It's like you're not working on your own, unlike your PhD, for example. You need to create code bases that are actually reusable, that people can work on. You need to document things. You shouldn't dislike engineering in general, because, like I said, it's still quite engineering heavy. So it's something to kind of take into account in terms of like how it is different from the academic experience, I would say.
And has that been a big jump for yourself as well, to go from kind of academic research to this applied research? Do you find that people that you work with have kind of found that to be quite a big jump?
For myself, yes, I would say so, because I mean it was kind of a gradual transition for me, to be honest. Because in my PhD, I did something rather theoretical, even though I worked in robotics, which is an applied field in itself. But then already during the years after my PhD, I transitioned to more applied things, and then ended up at the bank. So that was quite a transition, but I kind of wanted it because I wanted to work more with real life impact, so to say. And I think that's generally what brings people from academia to industry. So if you're looking for a job in industry, that's probably at least a part of your motivation. So
yeah. And when it comes to building the teams, what skills or traits do you prioritize? I mean, especially when the work kind of straddles both, deep tech and domain knowledge, right? Are there
Yeah,
specific skills and traits?
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, first of all, you need to be excellent in whatever you have done before. It doesn't need to be finance related at all. We have people with a PhD in computer vision, in formal methods for robotics. It really doesn't matter. But you need to be good at what you have done. You need to be flexible and willing to learn, because it's rather hard to find people who both have a finance background and are excellent in machine learning. So because of that, we don't require them to have finance background. I myself didn't have it. But you need to be you need to want to learn these things. So you need to be flexible, and you need to be open to interacting with people without a technical background. So that is something very important. So you need to have communication skills. You need to kind of want to engage with these people and maybe share knowledge and also learn about their domain knowledge and domain expertise. So it's quite a mix there.
Yeah. I think I was reading as well this report on the future of skills. It was LinkedIn's future of skills report, where these research focused roles they were talking about how they're becoming increasingly hybrid and like blending technical depth, communication, but also business fluency. So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there as well. But to kind of move on to a little bit like the future of banking. What technologies or methodologies are you currently most excited about?
So I mean, AI, of course, will make a big impact. I think we're already in the process of that. And that can mean different things, starting from productivity enhancement tools, which kind of what Gen AI promises, but I don't think it's limited to that. I think AI has lots of potential and more complex kind of core problems that banking has. And that can be financial crime prevention, that can be modeling markets, kind of helping people to make better decisions. And of course, improving customer experience, kind of making it more personalized, both for companies and then potentially for private individuals as well. But other than AI, we're monitoring what's happening in the quantum space. So right now it's maybe a very early stage. But that, of course, can also mean different things, right? So that can mean new approaches to cybersecurity and encryption, which is like something that is already being driven by the main organization at the bank. But that can also mean solving problems that were not possible to solve with classical computers in areas like risk assessment, portfolio optimization, and things like that.
And you mentioned kind of productivity boosts as well through generative AI. Where do you see it having the biggest productivity impact? Is it in like internal operations or customer engagement? Is it in compliance? Where do you think?
I think it's all over the place at the bank, because that's why language models are so popular. They're popular everywhere, but I would say for banks it's very important, because in banks you have lots of roles that require you to work with a lot of text data. That text data can also contain images, charts, tables. So you need to kind of you need to do a lot of this work, and I think a lot of those tasks can be not automated, but perhaps you can get some kind of assistance with generative AI there. And that's true for essentially any area in the bank that I can think of. So that's true for customer support, that's true for legal, that's true for compliance, that's definitely true for financial analysis. It's hard to think of an area where it's not relevant, to be honest.
And with that said, are there certain ways, or like how can banks, how can parts of SEB, for example, adopt these tools, these LLMs that you mentioned, responsibly, while ensuring kind of alignment with regulatory frameworks, data governance, which obviously govern a lot of what banks do, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, first of all, it's not about using any kind of tool, right? So it's not using ChatGPT directly, for example, because
No.
in this way we cannot ensure any kind of data privacy and things like that. But we have cloud providers. So we have both Google Cloud and Azure. And there you can have models that are basically secure for sensitive internal data as well, because companies don't train models on your data, and like no one gets access to them. So it's essentially more or less as safe as just using the cloud. So you kind of need to make sure that you work with trusted providers, and you need to secure that basically.
And we're seeing some banks, I think Bank of America, for example, use AI to kind of offer personalized investment strategies. You were talking about customization before as well, which is kind of boosting customer engagement and trust. But how do you see this type of AI powered personalization playing out in the Nordic banking
Yeah,
context?
so right now, private customers are really not a priority, I would say, for a number of ethical reasons.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, that will probably come later, but that's definitely not kind of the first thing that we wanted to start with. For the same reason, we're not looking into automating customer support. I just want to answer that question before it comes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when it comes to advisory for companies, for example, I think that's something that we will probably soon explore.
Got you. Are there any emerging technologies on your radar that you think, banks should be, starting to pay more attention to now?
I think,
You talked a little bit about quantum before, but anything else?
I mean, cybersecurity and everything that entails, I think, is extremely important. So that can mean how do you use AI for cybersecurity? That can mean how do you make sure that your encryption protocols are actually quantum safe? So there is lots of aspects to that. This is not something I'm actively involved in right now, but that's like definitely on the radar. Other than that, blockchain kind of keeps going on and off, I would say. So it's maybe not so much of a technological breakthrough as it is a paradigm shift. Like how do you think about money? So that's also something that some of my colleagues are monitoring.
In your view, are there any areas of AI that you think are overhyped right now? Are there any that are also kind of underappreciated that are really impactful in your view?
Yeah, I personally think, and that's a little bit of a controversial opinion, but I'm personally a little bit allergic to all this AGI discussions, to be honest, for a number of reasons. First of all, I mean, generative AI itself definitely has a lot of potential, but it's not, it's not the only area of AI. It's not necessarily always a good tool, especially for us. Like the business is built on a lot of trust, and it's of course regulated, which means that you want to have properties like explainability, interpretability. You want to have some kind of guarantees, especially if it's about decision making. You also want to look more into, for example, predictive models for time series and things like that. So there is some kind of discussion now about using pre-trained models for time series analysis, but language models are probably not the right tool for that. So you kind of need to think a little bit more about that. Everything that has to do with graph data. So GNNs have been around for a while, but I don't think we've seen kind of a big breakthrough there, especially in terms of scalability. In principle, I think when it comes to, like, if you want to build a complex system that is actually useful in a domain, what I think makes sense to do is maybe not to chase a very broad generality, but kind of to build hybrid systems to combine, the kind of power of pre-trained foundation models with something potentially even more classical that can actually give you some kind of guarantees.
Could you give us an example or something
exactly. So a famous example of that type of work is something DeepMind is pursuing. So if you're following their work, they had this papers like alpha geometry and then alpha geometry 2. So that's basically systems that both have language models and symbolic solvers for geometric problems that kind of work in the loop. And then basically the pre-trained model generates hypotheses, and then the symbolic solver itself tries to solve the problem with what is given and the hypothesis that the pre-trained model generated. And in this way, you kind of combine the system one and system two thinking, as people say, right? So you kind of have a guess that comes from a pre-trained model, but then you have the actual mathematical derivation that you kind of use the symbolic solver for. So you know that that's a correct one, and it actually makes sense. So I very much like this approach. I think generally trying to combine like I said, more classical methods, like, for example, symbolic solvers, like maybe optimization methods, like working with knowledge graphs in combination with something like language models. I think that has a lot of potential.
And is there any other areas that you think are really overhyped right now?
Not really. I don't think so. I think we just need to kind of be clear about the expectations that we have specifically on generative AI, especially when we talk about reasoning. I think that's a little bit confusing, maybe for general public. But that's probably maybe a little bit of hype on quantum as well. Every time someone develops a new chip or something, you can kind of see the stock market fluctuations and things like that. So I think there is a little bit of hype kind of coming and going there, but I still think it's going to take some time until we actually have really useful quantum computers.
And a lot of the work you're doing is impactful, potentially impactful on clients, right, or customers, or like companies, basically. What are like the major or the main concerns among these companies when it comes to a lot of the kind of AI related solutions that the SEB is kind of implementing for them?
Yeah, so we're not really building customer-facing applications right now, which kind of has a lot to do with the maturity of technology. So we like to always have a human in the loop. So in a sense, it kind of it happens really without customer noticing it. So it's more about helping our employees, and in their turn, kind of customers can get better experience. But the employee is still responsible for the process. You always need to have a human kind of overseeing what they're doing.
Yeah. Do you see that changing in the future, where there's always a kind of human overseeing the process?
It depends on the process. It depends on the application, of course. I mean, so right now, again, a lot of people are talking about replacing customer support with language models.
Right.
We've
seen a lot of companies do it, but you've also seen companies. I mean, I won't mention it, but you've also seen companies start to actually re-employ humans into those roles.
Exactly.
Which is super interesting, right?
Yeah, and I think this is to be expected, to be honest, because if we talk about hype, I think that's where hype is. I mean, language models still have their limitations, their fundamental scientific limitations, if they're solved, if you can actually guarantee the output and things like that, maybe then we can talk about customer-facing applications. But I think there is still research problems to solve on that way.
And are you more kind of optimistic in that sense? Do you think it's a matter of time, or are you more kind of pessimistic, skeptical?
It may potentially require a completely different type of approach. So I don't think scaling models and training them on more parameters and more data will bring us any further, kind of in the reliability aspect. But yeah, I mean, it kind of requires a different approach, I think. I don't think it's impossible, but I don't see it being solved soon.
Right. And we were talking a little bit about hype there, kind of flipping the question. Are there areas that you think are really underappreciated, but that you believe are highly impactful or kind of have a high potential?
So, for example, coming back to building hybrid machine learning systems that have some kind of domain knowledge or like a structured approach to actually handle the specific type of problems. So again, coming back to the alpha geometry example, that was like geometric problems in that sense. I think building this kind of systems and bringing domain knowledge and specific tools that are relevant for this domain with potentially pre-trained models have kind of nothing against them. They bring value. But I think like really building these hybrid systems and really focusing on domain constraints, domain knowledge, building systems around that is kind of underappreciated because first, it's not AGI. So the system is going to be still like it's going to have a narrow application area. And second, it's simply a lot of work because that requires dealing a lot with both experts in this domain and potentially the data and kind of thinking about how to approach that problem and potentially having to create completely new solutions. I think that is a little bit underappreciated, especially in the academic world, I can say. I think in the academic world, we have a big problem that we don't really work on real world data that kind of comes from different domains. And of course, in computer vision, for example, you have benchmarks that are real world. But then, for example, talk about finance data or data from healthcare. I mean, it's kind of hard to get access to that because it's, again, regulated industries.
Yeah.
And second, it's not really maybe the most appreciated thing when you publish in, say, top machine learning venues. So it's kind of easier to do research on already tried and established benchmarks that you can kind of compare your work to other works and kind of show improvement. And it's already a clean benchmark. You already know what you expect. But I would say tapping into this domain type of data, I think is a little bit underappreciated.
Nice. And I'd like to move on a little bit to leadership and kind of innovation, getting your advice in that sense. But before I do, what's on the horizon for you and the team at SEBx? Is there anything that you're really excited that you're working on at present or that's coming up that you can share?
Exactly. So, we're growing the team. Basically, we had a couple of people join in the past months. And that's 2 out of currently 5. So that's quite a big change. And then we'll have the next person joining in June. So we have several new cases that we're currently exploring. They will have to do with core business. So with like really building systems for experts. And that's in the areas of credit analysis, risk modeling, asset management, and things like that. So that's pretty cool. And then, of course, kind of the overarching team is how do you put these things together, potentially with the help of agents. So that is something that we have looked into for quite some time now.
Exciting, really exciting. And so, yeah, you're building a team and then kind of leading innovation in what is a somewhat complex industry. What advice would you give to senior developers or to tech leaders who want to be these agents of change within their own organizations?
I would say try to spend more time outside of your comfort zone, so outside of the tech bubble. That is so nice and comfortable, especially if you work in a company that is not technical. I would say try to invest some time into both sharing knowledge, and that can be given talks, organizing different kinds of tutorials, demos, what have you. But also try to get people's input. What's the biggest problems in their business sphere? Try to get their vision. Because I think like in this combination, it's like that's how you can really make a difference. Try to also identify drivers kind of in the business sphere. So people who are really excited to learn more, potentially drive innovative projects, because those are going to be your closest to life. And it's one thing when you as a technical person talk about technology and how great it is, but it's a completely different thing when someone with a completely different background comes and says, I'm using the system and it's amazing. Like it gives you so much more credibility.
Yeah, really, really well put. And what qualities do you think these kind of innovation leaders need most today? I mean, not just to kind of explore these new ideas like you're doing, but also to kind of drive them to adoption, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you need to think of a lot of things. So it's communication skills. I think I can't emphasize that enough. So you need to be flexible. You shouldn't surround yourself with just like-minded people. So you need to take into account different views, different perspectives. You really need to work closely with the business to kind of get the vision of what's important for the business, because it's very easy to get lost in just building things that are cool for the sake of building them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say flexibility and communication, apart from technical talent, but that I think is kind of a given, right? So we're already talking
Yeah.
about excellent people.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's like you say, it's a given. Everyone, assumes that kind of technical capabilities
Yeah,
of the person coming in, but maybe doesn't weigh up the importance of the other side of things, the communication skills that you mentioned, maybe collaboration skills and stuff like that. But how do you, in that kind of balance, if we were to put it this way, um, how do you assess that balance?
ideally, you need to have both.
Yeah.
I mean, then of course everyone is different, and
Ideally,
if you
you're
work,
perfect at both, but let's assume that not everyone is,
yeah,
right?
exactly, yeah, exactly. I mean, when you build a team, it will be inevitable that some people will be a little bit more, kind of one side of the spectrum, and
Yeah.
some on the other, and then you kind of need to think about how do you make this work, right? So because you will have people who would like to spend more time coding and don't want to have like minimum amount of human interaction, and that's
Yeah.
totally fine, but that's kind of good for me to know. And then you will have people on the other side of the spectrum who actually enjoy giving talks, for example, and talking to the business and trying to define cases, and having all this interaction. So it's really, it depends, but you need to have then a good balance in the team.
Yeah. No, exactly. One person needs to complement another,
Exactly.
essentially. Yeah. Really, really good advice. Is there anything that you would like to add here before I start to wrap up?
Yeah, I think going forward, so we often talk about career path, both in kind of in the area of AI and technology in general, but also if you're coming out of academia with some kind of technical degree. I think there is a lot of potential in bringing together domain knowledge in areas that are not kind of traditionally technical. And that's not necessarily finance, that can be healthcare, that can be, you know, any kind of area that is not technical. I do think that there is a lot of potential both for companies to attract this kind of talent and actually create career path for them to grow in their organization. But also for individuals, if you think about your own career path, I think this is going to be more and more relevant.
And for companies, what's the easiest way to kind of attract these individuals or find these individuals? You've mentioned that you haven't really found it hard to kind of hire people into the team, but for those
Yeah.
companies that maybe are finding it hard to find these individuals or the right ones and to attract them, how are there any kind of strategies that they might be able to employ?
Yeah, I think if you are thinking about building an organization like this, the first thing that you need to make sure you have is support from the leadership, so from top management. So
Yeah.
you actually need to make sure that they believe it's useful. And then you need to create the right environment. And I think here, if you want to attract former academics, for example, you kind of need to have someone in the company that they can relate to. So it's difficult if you hire one PhD and put them in the business unit, for example, it may be difficult for them to speak the same language.
Yeah.
So it's kind of good to have, the right leadership and maybe the critical mass of these people, so they can actually work together, so they don't feel lonely and isolated.
Yeah, really, really well put. Is there anything else you'd like to add before I wrap up?
No, I think that's about it.
That's super. Anastasia, thank you so much for fascinating conversation, getting your insights on the research there at SEBx and hiring innovation and everything else. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me again.
And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to Builders, leave us a review, share it with your friends, and stay tuned for more conversations with the people driving technological change. Until next time, keep on experimenting, keep on building, and we will see you soon.